Close your eyes. Listen to the soft rhythm of the falling rain, each drop a gentle whisper from the past. Let yourself drift back through time, through centuries of history, to a quiet village in the rolling hills of Tuscany. The year is 1452, and in this small Italian town called Vinci, a child is born. A child who will one day be known as a visionary, an artist, an inventor, a scientist, one of the greatest minds the world has ever seen. His name is Leonardo da Vinci. From the very beginning, his eyes were filled with wonder, his hands restless with creation, his mind overflowing with questions. What makes the birds soar through the sky? How does the human body move with such grace? What secrets lie hidden in the patterns of nature? These questions and so many more would guide him through a life of insatiable curiosity, one that would leave behind not only breathtaking paintings but also ideas that were centuries ahead of his time. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Hopefully, our story helps any of you struggling to sleep. Insomnia isn't pretty. If there's a specific genre or story you'd like me to cover, leave a comment below. If enough people are interested, I'll make it happen as soon as possible. Now, grab a blanket, turn off the lights as always, and let's begin. Tonight, in the quiet embrace of the rain, we step into his world. A world where art and science dance together, where imagination has no limits, and where the legacy of one man continues to inspire generations. This is the story of Leonardo da Vinci. The village of Vinci was a quiet, unassuming place, a patchwork of cobbled streets and golden fields nestled among the gentle hills of Tuscany. Life here moved slowly, marked by the rhythm of the seasons, the rustling of olive trees in the wind, and the distant chime of church bells. It was in this serene landscape that Leonardo da Vinci spent his earliest years, absorbing the world with eyes wide with wonder. Born on April 15th, 1452, Leonardo was the illegitimate son of Ser Piero, a well-respected notary, and Caterina, a young peasant woman. He was not granted the privileges of noble birth, nor was he destined for the structured education of the wealthy. But perhaps this was a blessing in disguise. Without the rigid constraints of formal schooling, Leonardo's childhood was one of exploration, of endless days spent wandering the countryside, where he first learned to see the world not just as it was, but as it could be. Even as a young boy, he was different. While other children played, Leonardo would sit for hours by the riverbanks, watching the water flow, tracing the patterns it made as it swirled around stones. He observed birds in flight, mesmerized by how they spread their wings and caught the wind. He studied the twisting shapes of leaves, the shifting shadows of clouds, the way light played upon the surface of a pond. Nothing escaped his attention. He did not simply look, he saw. Curiosity was his constant companion. He asked questions that had no simple answers. Why do birds not fall from the sky? How does a lizard grow back its tail? What lies beyond the horizon, past the hills of Vinci? His father, though distant, recognized his son's inquisitive nature and provided him with notebooks and charcoal. Soon, the pages were filled with sketches, drawings of plants, insects, and imaginary machines that had never before existed. In his childhood solitude, Leonardo found companionship in nature. The trees, the rivers, the animals, they were his teachers. He studied the way a horse's muscles moved beneath its skin, how a dragonfly's wings shimmered in the sun. He observed the play of light at dawn and dusk, fascinated by how it shaped the world around him. It was this keen observation, this endless thirst for knowledge, that would become the foundation of his genius. But life in Vinci was not without its hardships. As an illegitimate child, Leonardo was not permitted to follow in his father's footsteps as a notary. Society dictated that his future would be uncertain, his opportunities limited. Yet, instead of seeing obstacles, he saw possibilities. If he could not inherit his father's profession, then he would create a path of his own. And so, at the age of 14, Leonardo left the gentle hills of Vinci behind. He traveled to Florence, the heart of the Renaissance, where artists, scholars, and great thinkers gathered. It was here, in a city of cathedrals and sculptures, where his true journey would begin. But before Leonardo could change the world, he had to learn. In the bustling workshops of Florence, beneath the watchful eyes of masters, he would take his first steps toward greatness. The city of Florence, a place unlike any Leonardo had ever known. As he stepped through its winding streets, the world seemed to expand before his very eyes. Towering cathedrals, their intricate facades kissed by the golden light of dawn. Bustling marketplaces filled with the scent of fresh bread and the hum of lively conversation. Sculptures standing proudly in the open squares, frozen in perfect motion, as though they might come to life at any moment. This was the heart of the Renaissance, a city alive with ideas, with beauty, with a relentless pursuit of knowledge. And now, at just 14 years old, Leonardo had arrived to carve his place in it. It was under the mentorship of Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the most revered artists of his time, that Leonardo's journey as an artist truly began. Verrocchio's workshop was more than just a place for painting. It was a world of learning, a place where art, science, and craftsmanship intertwined. Within these walls, apprentices studied not only the delicate strokes of the brush, but also the structure of the human body, the precise calculations of perspective, and the mechanics of movement. For Leonardo, this was paradise. He threw himself into every lesson, every technique, his mind absorbing knowledge like a dry riverbed drinking in the rain. He learned to mix pigments, to stretch canvas, to carve marble with steady hands. But his curiosity would not be confined to paint and chisel alone. He spent hours studying anatomy, dissecting animals to understand the muscles beneath their skin, the intricate web of veins that brought them to life. He did not simply paint, he understood. It was during these years in Verrocchio's studio that an extraordinary moment took place, one that would mark Leonardo as a rising star in the world of art. Verrocchio had been commissioned to paint the Baptism of Christ, a grand and sacred piece. As was common, he allowed his most talented apprentice, Leonardo, to contribute to the painting. Leonardo was tasked with painting a single figure, an angel kneeling at the side of Christ. And when the painting was finished, something remarkable happened. The angel Leonardo had painted was unlike anything Verrocchio had ever seen. Its face was soft yet vivid, its features delicate yet alive. The way the light touched its curls, the way its hands rested in gentle reverence. It was as though the angel breathed. It is said that when Verrocchio saw the completed work, he was so astounded by his apprentice's skill that he vowed never to paint again, believing that his student had already surpassed him. Whether or not this tale is entirely true, one thing was certain. Leonardo had stepped beyond the realm of mere apprentice. He was becoming a master in his own right. But while Florence praised him for his artistry, Leonardo's restless mind reached for something more. He found himself fascinated by the world beyond the canvas. The movement of water, the way it flowed and swirled, the hidden mechanics of flight, the way birds tilted their wings to ride the wind. The human body, the intricate design of bone and muscle that allowed it to move with such grace. He filled pages upon pages with sketches, theories, and questions. How could man take to the skies? How could light be captured, controlled? How did the heart work, pumping life through the body? To others, these were distractions. To Leonardo, they were essential. In a time when artists were expected to paint and scholars were expected to study, Leonardo stood at the crossroads of both worlds. He saw no boundary between science and art, between the precision of mathematics and the fluidity of creativity. To him, they were one and the same. Yet, despite his brilliance, not all doors opened easily for him. For all his talent, Leonardo was an outsider. He lacked the formal education of the great scholars, the noble birth that would have granted him prestige. His work was often left unfinished, his ideas too ambitious for the time in which he lived. He applied to work on great projects, engineering feats, architectural wonders, only to be overlooked. He presented designs for machines that would not be understood for centuries. Florence, for all its beauty and opportunity, could not always contain the mind of Leonardo da Vinci. And so, after years spent painting, studying, and dreaming in this great city, Leonardo found himself at a turning point. In 1482, he made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. He would leave Florence behind and travel to Milan. But he would not go as just an artist. He would go as an engineer, an inventor, a visionary. He would offer his services not to a patron seeking paintings, but to a ruler in need of machines, of fortresses, of innovation. With his notebooks filled with ideas, war machines, flying devices, grand architectural designs, Leonardo set forth toward a new destiny. Forte. But what awaited him in Milan was not just the chance to build machines or design fortresses. It was there that he would create one of his greatest masterpieces and continue his quest to unravel the mysteries of the universe. Leonardo left Florence with more than just a painter's ambition. He carried with him a mind brimming with ideas, sketches of machines that had never been built, and a vision of the world that extended far beyond the canvas. His journey took him north to the grand city of Milan, where he sought not the patronage of a merchant or a religious leader, but of a ruler, a man of power and war. At the court of Ludovico Sforza, Duke of Milan, Leonardo did not present himself merely as an artist. No, he arrived as an engineer, a military strategist, an inventor of the future. In a letter to the Duke, he listed his skills, not paintings or sculptures, but war machines, fortresses, and devices that could give Milan an edge in battle. He promised catapults of greater precision, armored vehicles that could charge through enemy lines, and bridges that could be built and dismantled in mere moments. And so, Milan became his new home, a city of wealth, of military ambition, of grand architectural dreams, a city where Leonardo would reinvent himself. Though he was initially brought into the Duke's court to design weaponry and fortifications, Leonardo's genius could not be confined to war alone. His notebooks from this period are filled with sketches of fantastical machines, flying devices inspired by birds, intricate gears and pulleys that predated the Industrial Revolution, and even early concepts of the modern tank. He studied water with the same intensity as he once studied light and shadow. He observed how it moved, how it shaped landscapes, how it could be controlled. His fascination with hydraulics led him to design elaborate irrigation systems, canals that could transform cities, and pumps that could redirect the flow of entire rivers. Yet, for all his brilliance, most of these inventions remained trapped within the pages of his notebooks. The world was not yet ready for Leonardo's machines. His ideas were centuries ahead of their time, and the technology to bring them to life simply did not exist. Despite his growing reputation as an inventor, Leonardo could never escape the artist within him. And in Milan, he would create one of his most celebrated works, The Last Supper. Commissioned for the refectory of the convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie, The Last Supper was unlike any religious painting of its time. It was not a static, solemn depiction of Christ and his disciples. It was movement, it was emotion, it was a moment frozen in time. He captured the instant when Christ reveals that one among them will betray him. The shock, the disbelief, the sorrow, all of it etched into the faces of the disciples. Each figure was unique, each expression meticulously studied. And then there was the light. Leonardo, always the scientist, used his understanding of optics to make the scene feel real. He painted with layers so thin, so delicate, that they seemed to glow from within. He studied how light entered the room, how shadows stretched and softened, how perspective could draw the viewer into the very heart of the painting. Yet, even this masterpiece bore the marks of Leonardo's restless mind. He experimented with an untested technique, mixing oil with tempera to create richer colors. But time was unkind to his innovation. The painting began to deteriorate within decades, fading like a dream. For all his genius, Leonardo had a habit of leaving projects incomplete. His mind was always leaping forward, chasing the next idea before finishing the last. He would begin grand sculptures, only to abandon them in pursuit of a new curiosity. He would be given commissions for paintings, only to let years pass without lifting a brush. In Milan, he was asked to create a towering bronze statue, an equestrian monument of Ludovico Sforza's father. He spent years perfecting the design, crafting a clay model so massive that it left onlookers in awe. But before it could be cast in bronze, war came to Milan. The metal meant for the statue was melted down to forge cannons, and Leonardo's masterpiece was lost to history. Still, he did not despair. Leonardo was never bound to a single craft, never limited by setbacks. His notebooks from this time reveal a mind that never stopped moving. Sketches of human anatomy, notes on architecture, and studies of the cosmos. He was not just a painter, not just an engineer, not just an inventor. He was all of these things and more. But even the greatest minds are shaped by the tides of history. In 1499, Milan fell to the invading French forces. The once powerful Ludovico Sforza was overthrown, and Leonardo found himself at a crossroads once more. The court that had supported him for nearly 2 decades was gone. His unfinished projects, his grand designs, they were left behind in the chaos of war. And so, at the age of 47, Leonardo packed his belongings, his notebooks, his sketches, his ideas, and left Milan behind. He wandered from city to city, offering his talents to new patrons, ever searching for the next challenge, the next great mystery to unravel. But Leonardo's story was far from over. With each journey, each city, he continued to chase the unknown. And in the final years of his life, in a foreign land far from his birthplace, he would leave behind a legacy that would echo through the ages. The fall of Milan had left Leonardo da Vinci adrift. At nearly 50 years old, he had spent decades pursuing knowledge, painting masterpieces, designing machines that the world was not yet ready to build. Yet, despite all he had accomplished, he remained a restless soul, always searching, always yearning for something beyond the limits of his time. For years, he wandered through Italy, offering his expertise to nobles and rulers. He stayed in Mantua, then Venice, then returned to Florence, where he resumed his studies of anatomy, architecture, and engineering. In Rome, under the patronage of the powerful Medici family, he lived among some of the greatest minds of the Renaissance, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Bramante. Yet, unlike them, Leonardo no longer belonged to the world of grand commissions and soaring cathedrals. His interests stretched beyond what any patron could expect or understand. And so, when an invitation arrived from France, he saw it not as an exile, but as an opportunity for something new. In 1516, at the age of 64, Leonardo da Vinci left Italy for the last time. He traveled north, crossing the Alps, carrying with him his notebooks, his sketches, and 3 paintings. Among them, Mona Lisa. His destination was the court of King Francis I of France, a young and ambitious ruler who saw in Leonardo not just an artist, but a man of extraordinary wisdom. The king welcomed him with open arms, granting him residence at the Château de Clos-Lucé, a peaceful estate near the royal palace of Amboise. Here, in the tranquil countryside of France, Leonardo found something he had rarely known in his life: comfort. He was given the title of premier painter, engineer, and architect to the king. Yet he was not burdened with great commissions or urgent projects. Instead, he was free to think, to write, to dream. But even in this serene setting, time was catching up with him. His once steady hands trembled. The sketches that once poured effortlessly onto the page now came slower, more deliberately. His health was failing. Though his body weakened, his mind remained as sharp as ever. In his final years, Leonardo continued filling pages with ideas, concepts of machines, studies of water flow, reflections on the nature of art and science. He revisited old theories, refined his understanding of anatomy, and speculated on the mysteries of the universe. And then there was Mona Lisa. This small portrait, one he had carried with him for years, remained his most precious possession. He had never parted with it, never delivered it to a patron, as he had done with so many of his other works. Some believed he saw in it the culmination of everything he had learned, his mastery of light, shadow, and human expression. Others thought he simply could not bear to let it go. As he spent his days at Clos-Lucé, visitors came from across Europe to seek his wisdom. He was no longer just an artist or an inventor. He was a living legend, a man who had touched the boundaries of what was possible and glimpsed beyond them. Yet, even legends must face their final sunset. On May 2nd, 1519, at the age of 67, Leonardo da Vinci passed away in the quiet of his French estate. Some say King Francis I was at his side, holding his hand as he took his last breath. Whether true or not, the sentiment remains. Leonardo was cherished, honored, and respected, even in his final moments. He left behind no children, no direct heirs. What he left instead was something far greater. His notebooks, filled with thousands of pages of ideas that would inspire generations. His painting, scattered across Europe, would become some of the most revered in history. His vision, his relentless curiosity, his refusal to be confined by the limits of his time, these would shape the world long after he was gone. Leonardo da Vinci may have left this world, but his ideas, his art, and his dreams continue to whisper through time, reminding us that genius is not just about what we create, but about the questions we dare to ask. Leonardo da Vinci's story did not end with his passing. In many ways, it had only just begun. His legacy stretched far beyond the world he knew, beyond the Renaissance courts and the dusty pages of his notebooks. His ideas, his art, his insatiable curiosity, they lived on, rippling through time like the currents of a river, shaping the minds of artists, scientists, and dreamers for centuries to come. But what can we, in our modern world, learn from a man who lived 500 years ago? What lessons does Leonardo's life offer us today? Leonardo was not bound by the expectations of his time. He refused to stay in one lane, to be confined to a single craft or discipline. He was a painter, a scientist, an engineer, a musician, an architect, a philosopher. And yet, none of these labels fully defined him. He saw no distinction between art and science, between logic and imagination. To him, they were one and the same. Two paths leading to a deeper understanding of the world. What if we approached life the way Leonardo did? What if we allowed our curiosity to guide us, to take us beyond what we think we know? What if we embrace the idea that learning is not a destination, but a lifelong journey? Leonardo reminds us that knowledge has no boundaries, that the moment we stop asking questions, we stop growing. Many of Leonardo's ideas were dismissed in his time. His flying machines were seen as fantasies, his anatomical studies too radical, his engineering designs too ambitious. But history would prove him right. His sketches of helicopters, tanks, and diving suits, drawn centuries before their time, would later serve as blueprints for the inventions that shape our world today. He was never afraid to think beyond what was possible. And perhaps that is one of his greatest lessons, that true creativity requires courage. It means daring to explore new ideas, even if they seem impractical. It means embracing failure, knowing that every mistake is a step toward something greater. It means understanding that the greatest innovations often begin as impossibilities. In a world that values speed and efficiency, Leonardo reminds us that true mastery takes time. He spent years perfecting a single painting, decades refining his understanding of anatomy, and a lifetime chasing ideas that would never come to completion. Not because he lacked discipline, but because he believed in the process of discovery. Leonardo's genius did not come from rushing through life. It came from slowing down, from truly seeing the world around him. He studied the way birds tilted their wings as they soared. He observed the way water moved, how it curved and danced around obstacles. He dissected bodies, not just to understand anatomy, but to uncover the very essence of life itself. And he recorded everything. His notebooks were filled with sketches, thoughts, and questions, small fragments of curiosity that, when pieced together, formed the foundation of his genius. What if we, too, took the time to observe, to slow down, to notice the details others overlook, to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be? In a time of distraction and endless noise, Leonardo's way of seeing reminds us of the power of stillness, of deep observation, of taking the time to understand before rushing to create. Even now, centuries after his death, Leonardo da Vinci continues to inspire. His paintings hang in the most revered galleries in the world. His scientific observations laid the groundwork for discoveries that would come long after him. His notebooks remain a testament to the boundless potential of the human mind. But perhaps his greatest gift to us is not just his work, but his way of thinking. A reminder that curiosity is endless, that knowledge is never complete, that creativity has no limits. And so, as the rain falls gently outside, as you drift toward sleep, let Leonardo's story linger in your thoughts. Let his questions become your own. Let his wonder remind you that there is always more to see, more to learn, more to dream. And maybe, just maybe, in your dreams tonight, you will find yourself standing beside Leonardo, watching the birds take flight, sketching machines not yet invented, reaching for the impossible, and knowing, as he did, that the journey of discovery never truly ends.